Welcome back, Nollywood diaspora fans of Nollywood. I salute you and I say shalom. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us again. And this is our 12th video looking at character analysis. And this platform is dedicated and inspired by no other than Sosoliso herself, Queen Soso Sonia Uche, for all her wisdom that she has dropped throughout the years. So welcome back to Sonia Uche, or Soso Walking in Wisdom. Soso Walking in Wisdom indeed. And this podcast, we merely explore the timeless lessons from Nollywood movies. I am your host. I am Coach Cece, and today we're again diving into this is our 12th episode, and today we're visiting executive producer Uche Nancy on Uche Nancy Television, and we're going to look at the movie Love of My Youth. And if you have not subscribed to Uche Nancy Television or Uche Nancy Update TV, please be sure to do so. We also have to go back to who started it all, for me at least, Sunya Uchi Television. She's now at 904,000 or 904K subscribers. If you have not subscribed, please be sure to do so, fan out, share with family, and let us move towards 1 million strong indeed. And for that, we say thank you. And one last, we're going to ask you as a courtesy, as a new platform, we are focusing not so much on gist, but the depth of the characters that are on display in every Nollywood movie. And today we're going to look at, indeed, the movie Love of My Youth. If you have not subscribed, I would ask you to please do so. It's free. If you're a woman or man of faith and you know better, you desire to do better, if you can face the man or woman in the mirror because it's about self-awareness. And if you self-reflect, it builds self-awareness. And there's so many golden nuggets looking at the movies alone. I'm just here to help you dissect it further. So, without further ado, let's get into Uche Nancy's Love of My Youth, starring the handsome Brian Okwara and Chisom Agowike, the beautiful Chisom indeed, the BFF of Sonia Uche herself. And right now, the movie stands at 433,000. So, family, we have ways to go because this was an excellent, excellent movie indeed. And it's a love story. We all love romance. We all love love. And it was about history coming back front and center and understanding the choices that we made when in a particular position and how it could affect our future. So, yes, it explores a story of love, betrayal. We love betrayal, and the path to redemption. Because right here on this platform, we say, if you mean it, when you say you're sorry, everyone can be redeemed, right? All we need to do as a man or woman of faith is to offer grace because we receive grace by Jesus Christ himself, who some call Yahushua Mashiach. But let's get into today's movie, right? So in this film, we have two prominent families, two chiefs know each other. They're united by wealth and influence, and it's about growth. And they orchestrated a plan for their children, Tife and Bimbo, to work on a project when they returned from their studies from abroad. And the father's hidden agenda is for the two to fall in love, but in the guise of a project. And it was a real project, so it was real work, but I think their number one agenda was for them to come together, unbeknownst to the family that they already had something going. I'm not going to say anymore. I'm not going to give it away. And the truth is a saying, there's a thin line between love and hate. The visceral and the deep-seated hate and the looks, the nasty looks that they both gave each other, and especially coming from Trisam's character Bimbo, and then the kind of snide remarks coming from Brian's character Tife. it was evident that there was something else going. The father commented that they act like Tom and Jerry. Some of you may remember the cartoon characters where Tom continuously chased Jerry. Jerry was, I believe, the mouse, and Tom was the cat. And he indicated that indeed this is like Tom and Jerry. If you happen to be Generation Z or younger, you may not get that, but Google it, you'll see Tom and Jerry indeed in action. But while the fathers had really, really good intentions, well intentioned, the plan was thrown into disarray by a hidden history. And that's why it's important to be honest with your family members as well. And Tife and Bimbo's paths crossed before while their families knew each other from when they were both children. And it's as a result, a decision was made. There's a level of unforgiveness on the table, and they now were brought together again. The relationship was really shattered from a coach perspective. The foundational, and we always have to start at the foundation. Hence, we are called to build our house on a rock. If it's not foundational, it becomes harder for your house. That also includes a spiritual house, right? And then when it comes to your love, build the love on a rock, it will stand. So in both cases, what we found is that the relationship was shattered by simply a lack of trust. And though it's small, a lack of trust in a relationship with a quote unquote promising future, if not addressed, can be um, can have the downside to that relationship unraveling. So, in this particular episode, what we're going to do is to consider the character of Tife in his role in this damaged relationship that he contributed to, as well as Bimbo. We're going to discuss the character and based on his role, how he contributed to it. It takes two to tango, so that's very important. But before we get into actually, yes. Let's get into their character, and then we're going to get into what we've discussed previously on this platform about a company that we keep individuals who we call friends. And are they really friends, or are they frenemies? And sometimes it's a thin line between friend and frenemy that we are unable to tell. So let's get back into the analysis first of Love of My Youth for both Brian's character and Chisup's character. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of understanding friendship, what it means, the difference between friendship and acquaintance, and friendship and frenemies. You definitely have to be mindful of frenemies, regardless of how long you might know that person. And then we're going to give you how to level up and then lessons learned. I hope that sounds well for you. If by chance you have not hit the subscribe button at this point in time, again, we encourage you to please do so, like, fan out, and share. And most important, do the work. For transformation to take form, you must do the work. That's the best gift you can give yourself if you desire to change. But it is intentional. That must be your intent overall. So let's get into it. So Tife's character, played by Brian Okra, and again, I apologize um if I'm slaying the names. Okay, so I do apologize for that in advance. So Tife is a character driven by a single-minded focus on his goals. He returned from the States or wherever he went to school, and he's here now to consider following up on a project, working with a person of his past. I'm not going to give away the secret, but just to let you know, these two individuals were familiar with each other. But the problem with all his diligence and all his book smarts, all the theoretical of I am who I am, his character main problem is that he lacked trust. And that was very evident as you continue to move forward in this movie. And unfortunately, when we get close to the middle to the end of the movie, we understand why I now say that is a lack of trust that really broke it. And let's face it, ladies, sisters, daughters of Zion, the role of the man. They have a very important role. And part of it is also starting the relationship, right? And biblically speaking, if you choose, right, it's coming from the man's perspective as well. So we need to be mindful of that. And if a particular social media evidence comes to the attention of your prospect, in this era of social media, I will just encourage you to be mindful. Things are not what they are. In the 19th, 20th century, we could say, if you see it, believe it. In the 21st century, we cannot say that. Because most of the things that we're seeing on social media, first of all, it's not true. Let's start with the person and how they look, right? And the many things we can use to enhance ourselves. Unfortunately, many of us are choosing to become someone else. I think even our creator may not recognize us. So it's very important to understand the evidence before you. And in the 21st century, again, I want you to keep this information in your back pocket. If evidence is brought to your attention, and that's the only evidence you have, don't blow it out of proportion, right? Do not do it. It behooves you to do your due diligence, do your investigation, ask the right questions, consider the source where you're getting this information, and move ahead with emotional intelligence. We have to put aside our puerile sophomoric ways, and it's very important that if we care about a person, if we love the person, understand that in this era of social media, things are not what they see. So don't be quick to make a judgment call, because that could really affect the rest of your life. So let's get into Bimbo's character. Bimbo represents a person who's both a victim and a victor, I would say. She's deeply hurt by what transpired. Unfortunately, she's not the most forgiving person. And even you could forgive and not necessarily return to that situation. But it was clear that she did not forgive, hence the reason the emotion of anger emanated in every interaction with Tife. And while I can say I understand, the problem with not forgiving is that it hurts not just the other person, maybe. Some people just don't care, but it definitely hurts you. So if we have grace and mercy from our Savior, if you're a man or woman of faith, try to practice that level of grace and mercy as well. And release the anger, release the hurt. Otherwise, you're certainly hurting yourself. And if unchecked, that could also materialize in a physiological way, right? That can lead to a dis-ease. So be mindful of that. So now let's get into Jeff and Camilla. These are two secondary characters who played the boyfriend and girlfriend, Jeff and Camilla, of Tife and Bimbo. So before we get into that analysis, I want you to be mindful, as I stated, the whole concept of frenemy. And it's important to know who your friends are. Again, in this era of social media, having a million followers don't mean you have a million friends. It means you have a million people that maybe like what you do, and even more than 50% of them might be attempting to overthrow you and become you. So be mindful and don't be too trusting with people you're acquainted with on social media, right? And this takes me to 5 ways to identify friends, because I am a coach. And looking at a character analysis and understanding the discussion again about It's important to know the people you consider friends. Show me your friends, and I'll show you who you are, and I'll tell you who you are. This is so true. And what we have here is an old saying, is an old quote. I quoted it before. Um, and it can be taken in three different ways. Show me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. Number two, tell me your company, and I'll tell you who you are. And three, by the company you keep, I can tell what life you lead. All 3 points are so pertinent and so important when we consider whether someone is a friend or not. It starts with the company you keep, your associates, and that could impact you. Before we get into your friendships, and the reason why I'm saying that is because in 2022, we had news of this young lady by the name of Shanquella Brenda Robinson. The late Shanquella Brenda Robinson was unalived by her friends who accompanied her from North Carolina to a resort town of Cabo San Lucas in Mexico. And based on what I've read so far, this person, she was doing very well, and she sponsored a trip of about three or four other individuals, boys and girls. The other part to the story is that these individuals that she sponsored and who she labeled her friends, these were childhood friends. So the person you call your friend is not based on how long you knew them, is whether they have your interest or not. And one of the key litmus tests, and I'm going to show you 5 things you may look at, but key litmus tests is whether they're around to support you in your lows, because in life we have our valleys and we have our peaks. And you have to find out whether that person will join you during those times in your lows, your valleys, or do they run? And the other one is the opposite. During your time of success, are they celebrating with you, or they're smiling to your face and talking behind your back and might very well be communicating something different, providing a different narrative as to how you got to your position during your times of celebration. Or the person just may not be around at all because they cannot handle all that success and grace that you're blessed with. And it is a blessing. It's important to know that our time, talents, and treasures, the 3 T's, is a gift from your creator. So we need to put it in perspective. And sometimes, we play a part in our frenemies when we reach a particular place and position in our life in what we wanted to accomplish. And we do things that the other person considers that you're rubbing it in their faces. And that turns into a whole different type of friendship again, leading into what I categorize as frenemies. The enemy, the frenemy is the person who you don't know. And then let's consider, because we are always here to give you information indeed, before we speak about some differences between acquaintances and friendship, let's consider 5 ways to identify friends. And if you'd like to link and the source to this, please put it in the comment section, and I'll be certain to send you the source or the research on the 5 ways to identify friends. I hope that sounds good to you. Let's get into it. Okay, the first one, consistency in actions. A true friend follows through on promises and acts in a consistent manner. Biblically, we say, let your yea be a yea and let your nay be a nay. Absolutely. Number 2, mutual respect. Genuine friends respect each other's opinions, boundaries, and individuality, right? And as a result of that, you're able to shine, you're able to put your best foot forward, you're able to convey your thoughts, your opinions without feeling that you're walking on eggshell. Number three, empathy. True friends empathize with each other's situations, offering support and understanding. And support can come in any number of ways. And it could be financial, it could be emotional, it could be physical. You have to move. They're physically there to assist you with the moving. And this is a true test because if they have other engagements and they're able to walk away from those engagements to assist you, consider them on their way to becoming your true friend. That's a level of empathy worth holding on to. Absolutely. Then we have the celebration of successes and hard times, which I just spoke about. So consider this your litmus test. I would encourage you, I'll keep it here a few seconds. Consistency in actions, mutual respect, empathy, celebration of successes, and support in hard times. Write this in your notes. And yes, you can silently check out someone. Ladies and men, gentlemen, I know we all have a list, whether it's mentally or physically, of the people that we consider good husband-wife material. We should have a similar list, according to Coach CC, of friendships. And these five criteria starts the list of what you should expect from a friend. So it has nothing to do with someone from your childhood or someone you just met 10 months ago. It starts off with this and the journey continues. And over time, you will know. But don't become a statistic. You have to operate it with emotional intelligence. You have to be okay with being alone. Sometimes you're called in a particular season in your life to walk alone. And you would find that your friends are slowly but surely disappearing, and that's okay. If that's a season that you're in, you must be okay with that. But don't be a statistics. Moving forward, let's consider now, as I stated, let's consider friends and acquaintances. Okay? You may know their first name, last name. If you do not know where they live, if you've never been into their home, they're all acquaintances, even if you follow them on social media or you speak to them. If you haven't been physically into the person's home and you were allowed to come in and really have a nice meal, your acquaintances, regardless of how long, including on the job, right? The first difference lies in the depth of emotional connection, and the way you build that emotional connection and intimacy is with bringing someone into your home. It's a lot different when you speak to someone on the phone or in the office setting. Another key difference is the level of trust and support. Friends are typically more involved in your lives, know a little bit more about you. Again, not so much in terms of your spec and stats, because you can pick that up on social media, but just in terms of knowing the nuances that other people may not be privy to. There's a level of communication and there's a level of comfort in that communication that goes beyond being superficial. And and then I would say when you consider friends versus acquaintances, friendship friendship requires full transparency. Maybe not as vomit, maybe not all at one time, but it does require transparency. Acquaintance is what you put on, is that mask. And in my practice, it's all about uncover to discover. So much so that you are so maxed up, you don't recognize the man or woman in the mirror. And that's a problem. Okay, so let's be mindful of that. Now let's get into the character analysis of the two secondary characters, and that is from they play the role of Jeff and Camilla. These two characters are really the embodiment of manipulation and deceit. Frenemies, can we say frenemies? They thrive on creating chaos and exploiting the weakness of others. And also, not just exploiting the weakness of others, but taking advantage of their feelings in terms of what they know, don't know. Their actions serve as a stark reminder of the destructive power of envy and the lengths people will go to achieve their selfish desires. And of course, we have a couple of scriptures that I like to present to you. If we look at Proverbs 16, verse 28, right here, this whole chapter is really great when it talks about that vile person. But verse 28 says, a froward man soweth strife, and a whisperer separated chief friends. Right? So anyone who sows strife by what they speak, what's coming out of their mouth, always having a dissenting opinion, whispering behind your back because they're playing telephone, third, fourth, fifth, and it comes back to you. You want to stay away from that person. Then let's consider Proverbs 3:5. Because you're trusting your man or woman of faith, and because you're trusting in your creator, you trust that he will bring the right people to you. You trust that he will unearth what's in the dark. What's in the dark comes to the light eventually. You trust in him, and in trusting in him, because you're faithful servant, he indeed will not disappoint. Okay, so those are two scriptures I would encourage you to hold on to when we consider love of my youth. Absolutely. Now we got to get into how to level up because we have to learn, right? It's not just about pointing something out. If you can relate to any of the characters, the dad, Bimbo and Tife, the friends, this is what you're going to do to level up. Trust, but verify. Right? In order to build and foster friendship. I give everyone the benefit of the doubt until. That's why you have to verify, you have to validate, you have to ascertain. And you certainly have to pray because what's in the dark will absolutely come to the light. Then handle conflict with wisdom. And as a leader, it's very important. In the last movie, we spoke about Timini's character being able to handle conflict between his mom and his to-be wife. That is very important. So both their stories teaches us, that's Tife and Bimbo's story, that unresolved conflict festers and destroys. We mentioned that earlier. So absolutely, you have to be able to relate and release, let it go and let Yah, let it go and let God, let it go and let Elohim, let it go. And letting go does not equate to going back to vomit. It does not equate to going back unless you can verify that it was incorrect. Oh, the person made a mistake. Everyone make mistakes. And you're willing to forgive and move on, pending on what it is. So there are options. I'm here to give you options and let you know, but it requires, in building relationships and friendships, it requires work and a level of verifying. And it's important that you heal before you build. Both Tiffy and Bimbo rushed into new relationships without healing from the previous one. And that was very evident as well because their partners were insecure. And this is a common mistake that leads to more pain. So to truly level up, you must first do the work of self-healing. Allow yourself time. And as a coach, I cannot say it's 1 year, 1 month. I can say that everyone is different and you take all the time you need, just like a loss. If you lost a family member, if you lost a spouse, you lost a parent. Depending on how deep and that connection and relationship is, no one can say your time is up. People who love you and empathize with you, sympathize with you, offering you condolences, would give you the time that you need and check in. I have a sister friend that also lost her spouse. I check in once a week, every other week, just to see how things are going. And even though I'm a coach, I'm a professional enough to know that having her as a client during this challenging time is not a way to go. I can just simply be a sister friend. I hope that makes sense. Okay. And now to the conclusion of this character analysis for love of my youth, let's consider lessons learned. Character matters more than circumstance. Tiffy's character flaw, his lack of trust, was the true cause of his problems and not what he was shown. This movie teaches us that our character is the foundation of our success. Betrayal is a two-way street. So while Jeff and Camilla were the instigators, really, the person who you're creating that bond with, Tiffy and Bimbo's lack of communication and trust were what allowed the betrayal to succeed. You have heard someone say you left your door open, you left the window open. And if you're a man or woman of faith, we talk about leaving your door open for the spirit to enter. So don't do it. Close all doors. And then lastly, we're going to end with authentic relationships are built on forgiveness. Absolutely. And if you're a man or woman of faith, knowing that the Elohim that we serve is slow to anger and plentiful to mercy, he offers bowels of mercy. Bowels of mercy. And if we're walking in his image and his likeness, we are required to offer bowels of mercies as well. Not if it goes against in terms of our health, not if it compromises our mental, emotional, and physical health, but you can forgive, release, move on, and pursue a healthy relationship, if not with the same person. The path to true happiness and peace lies in the ability really to forgive. So this movie shows us that holding on to hatred and resentment only hurt ourselves. And if you're willing to level up once you have the right information you need, because you did your due diligence, you extend mercy, you forgive, and you rebuild. Rebuilding exists, absolutely. It's not a one shot for everyone. But if you don't have to go through the pain and hurt, the less the better. So that concludes this episode. This concludes this episode. This is episode number 12. And we did a review, not of the movie, but a character analysis review for both characters, Brian as well as Chisa. And this movie is indeed courtesy of Uche Nancy. Again, I remind you to go ahead and subscribe to Mama Uche Nancy. And again, I encourage you to subscribe to this newest platform when we look at everything Nollywood movies, focusing on character analysis. If you're going to do the work with us, be sure to subscribe and fan out and tell a friend. And be sure to leave your comments. I'm looking forward to the comments. It's new, so I know it's going to take time, but I'm looking forward to reading your comments. And I would leave it to all my gracious family throughout the diaspora. If you are interested in a free 30-minute virtual through WhatsApp or Zoom, please also leave your details in the comment section and I'll get back to you. Family, thank you so much for listening to another episode. You be well to yourself and each other. And as always, peace